Well, good morning. What a pleasure it is to at least have a few people in front of me while I'm preaching instead of the plain wall of my study. But great to be here and great to have so many of you out there across the world. I originally called this message Present for the Presence, but to be honest, I'm very tempted to call it Raiders of the Lost Ark. Not that the Ark is lost, but that there is something very important in this coming season that we focus around the presence of God. I think there's almost certainly for every one of us two things that we have missed most. Because I think most of us have managed to get enough food and all of that kind of stuff that we were worried about a year ago, stockpiling stuff. We've done okay there. But there's two things that I think for most of us who love church, love the Lord, that have missed the most. And that is the corporate experience of the presence of God, of being in the room together with the presence of God, and, of course, being with other people, the face-to-face experience of being with people, and especially without masks on, etc., etc. And so as we begin to plan and to dream and to think our way, as it were, up from this place, I really felt like the Lord wanted me to speak about this. In fact, I believe with all my heart that the Lord has given a specific assignment to Sue and I in these coming months. And that is that everywhere we go, to make sure that we pay attention to the presence of God in the middle of every scenario that we find ourselves in. I'm going to tell you a little bit about one detail in a few moments. But before I go anywhere, I want to say this. Moses, when he was getting ready to lead the people on the next leg of the journey, said this to God: if your presence does not go with us, do not lead us up from this place. Now, this is Moses. This is the one who has seen the Red Seas part, who has seen the rod become a snake, who has seen the 10 plagues challenged and beaten by the power of God. And Moses is saying, if you don't go with us, we don't want to go. And similarly with David, as he is gathering the people and about to enter into another epic season of his life, he says this: we need to get the ark of God back, because we did not inquire of it in the days of Saul. And all of these references, if I don't give you the exact reference, they're in the companion notes. I encourage you to grab hold of those. I've put some challenges and some questions in there. I want this to be an interactive message. I want you to engage with the presence of God in this message. So if Moses and David knew that the importance of the presence of God, and in David's case, the ark of God, which I'll explain to you in a moment, how much more as we prepare to go up, as it were, from this place, come out of this season, that we need to cry. And I believe that this cry to get the ark back is an invitation to all of us to ensure that we have the ark, the presence of God, in the center of all that we do. Now, my humor about the Raiders of the Lost Ark is also to help everyone, because if you don't know this wonderful Bible as well as others, it's totally fine. I just wanted to reference the fact that there's a great movie made about the ark. It is something real, though. It's not a fantasy from Hollywood's imagination. There was a real ark, an ark that was called the Ark of the Covenant, or the Ark of the Testimony, or the Ark of God, or the Ark of the Presence. It's a very important part of the history of the Christian faith, and is very real. So don't be fooled by the fantasy of Indiana Jones, but it's a good reference to realize that it was important enough to be the title of a great movie. So the ark. Now, the ark is probably one of the most accurate pictures in the Old Testament of Jesus, who was to come of course, in the New Testament. The ark made of acacia wood, which is a symbol of the humanity of God, and covered in gold, which is a picture of the deity, the glory of God. And Moses was actually instructed to build this ark and to put it in a place in the middle of really the first incredible place of worship built on earth, the tabernacle of Moses. He was instructed to build it and to place it in the very center in the Holy of Holies. But here's the good news. The good news is we don't need to build a tabernacle, and we don't need to have a Holy of Holies that only one priest can enter once a year. And you can read all about that in Hebrews, the book of Hebrews in chapter 9, because we have a great high priest whose name is Jesus, who gave every one of us permission to enter into the Holy of Holies whenever we want, wherever we want, and to experience the presence of God. This is very, very good news. Now, the ark for me represents in total the presence of God. One of the things I love about our current world in terms of church, that we have moved from the great hymns of our faith, which I still loved. We've moved into praise and worship, and we've moved from there into worship, but now our hunger and our desire is we don't just want songs. We want to experience the presence of God. This is so important for every one of us, and we need the presence. And I'm going to give you a few challenges as we go through. And as I've said, the key is this cry. Don't lead us up from here. We don't want to leave this place if your presence doesn't go with us, we say with Moses. And with David we say, let's make sure that we have got the ark of the covenant, the ark of the testimony, the ark of God, the ark of presence with us, right in the center of everything that we do. One of the things that intrigues me about the name actually is it's the ark of the testimony, which is a symbol, really, a picture of what God has already done. Leon beautifully tapped into this theme earlier in closing worship. So we've got the testimony of what God has done, but we've also got the name, the Ark of the Covenant, which is the covenant of what God has said He will do. So even this Old Testament ark has a validity today because it's a type of Jesus. And Jesus, of course, we have the testimonies of Jesus, but we have the covenant, the promise, the prophetic of Jesus too. So here's my first challenge to you. What area of life or society are you praying, do you pray for the presence of God to impact? Because right now, wherever you look, on the news, your social media, your conversations, there are many things out there going on in this world, but I have good news. If we begin to pray for the presence of God, the ark of the covenant and the testimony to be right in the center, no matter what circumstance of our world, no matter what issue of our world, God's presence will change that situation. I believe that with all my heart. But then I want to move on, because in the story, and you can read the story or you can look it up online, just look at the, as it were, the storyline of the ark. It's a fascinating story. But once David had called for the ark to come back, the ark ended up in a home, in the home of Obed-Edom. Now, what we see there, and that's in 1 Chronicles 13 and verse 14, it says, "Thus the ark of God remained with the family of Obed-Edom in his house 3 months, and the Lord blessed the family of Obed-Edom with all that he had." This is an incredible promise for us, because as we choose to cry out for the ark to be in our lives, present in everything we do, there's a promise. There's an Old Testament promise which is even more powerful in the New Testament. I'll show you that in a moment. But the promise is that we get to be blessed. And let me just tell you for a moment what was in the ark. In this box made of wood, covered in gold, had three things in it. Three very important kind of artifacts, like a mini museum of God right there in that ark. It contained Aaron's rod. Now, again, something you can read, but this is an incredible story because it is the rod that budded. In other words, it began to bloom. For me, Aaron's rod is a symbol of the power of God. And we need the power of God. We're going to press into that in a moment. It also contained the jar of manna, which represents, of course, the provision of God, because God fed the people of Israel with manna every day. And it always blows my mind that he did it, for 5 days, one portion a day, and then on the sixth day, 2 portions, so there was enough for the Sabbath. I love that. He knows the detail. So the manna is a symbol of the provision of God. And interestingly, manna means what is it? Which also, a little aside, it means that it's a symbol of the mystery of God. And I love that. So we've got the rod, the power of God. We've got the jar of manna, which was probably a gold pot. Don't think Kilner jar. Think really beautiful jar. It's a symbol of the provision of God. And then we have the 2 tablets on which God wrote the commandments, which for me, I believe, are a symbol of the principles of God. So now we've got the ark that is diverted to this house of Obed-Edom. Here's what I want you to do. Imagine that the ark is in your home. And of course, we are talking about the ark being here in Kerith, Bracknell, in Blackwater Valley, in Windsor, on West Wight. We want the ark in our family home and in our church home. I want you to imagine that it's there. But here's the incredible thing about the New Testament. The Old Testament, we have an ark made of wood, covered in gold, in the tabernacle, in the Holy of Holies, and only one priest can enter. Not only did Jesus tear the veil, saw the veil torn so that we could enter into the Holy of Holies and be in the presence of God because of what he did. Not only that, it is better than that. 1 Corinthians 3:16, quick aside there, study the 3:16s of the New Testament. Just a fun journey, but the 3:16s are some of the most powerful verses in the New Testament. Nearly every book in the New Testament has a 3:16. And of course you know the best one, don't you? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. But 1 Corinthians 3:16 says this, do you not know that you are temples of God? You are temples of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you. In other words, you're the equivalent of the Holy of Holies. This is incredible. This is because the blood of Jesus cleansed you from all sin and prepared you to be suitable housing for the Spirit of God. And more than that, you have his presence. Colossians 1:27, Christ in you, the hope of glory. But here's where I want us just to pause for a moment. And I didn't realize how prophetic this was when I prepared this message until I walked in here today. I know that this is prophetic for us, for Kerith. You see, I want you to just take a moment and turn your affection and attention to God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Honestly, whichever one of those you feel most comfortable, just take a moment and turn your affection. Because he's here. And he's there with you. He's present. I want you to imagine that the Ark of the Covenant is in your house. Is in this room, Kerith Bracknell. And I want to ask, what do you need the power of God for? Put it in the chat. Just jump in the chat. Put down on there. Let's join together with you. Family, let's join together and let's agree for the power of God to be in whatever circumstance, whatever difficulty, whatever challenge you have, because the presence of God is with us, and therefore the power of God is present with us. And then I want you to put in the chat, what do you need the provision of God for? Now, why do I think this message is prophetic? Because Simon just stood up here and said, we need some provision. We need provision for a building in Blackwater Valley. Well, that's putting the ark in the middle of everything we do. Of a statement this day, Sunday, the 21st of March, 2021, to make a statement in this family. Not that we haven't done this before, but we're doing it again and saying we're putting the ark of the presence of God, the covenant of God, the testimony of God, the provision of God, the power of God, and the principles of God in the center of the room. And I'm believing that the result of that is that we will be blessed in everything that we do. But what do you need the provision of God for? Maybe you need a job. Maybe you need a home. Maybe you need a new car. Maybe you need some college fees. Maybe you need some debt paid off. He is provider. And what do you need to know the principles of God? Where in your life do you need to apply the principles of God? The way of God, the wisdom of God. Put it in the chat. Maybe there's a big decision coming. Maybe you're in the middle of a challenging relational situation. The principles of God are timeless. I want to encourage you. Put the ark in the middle of everything that you do. And just like the home of Obed-Edom, they were blessed. I am believing, however tough this season is, that there is breakthrough and blessing available for us all. And then I want to move to challenging us. I want to challenge us to be present tomorrow. You see, as we come out of this season, and we're coming out, and it's looking good on the other side. I honestly have an unusual, it's almost illogical expectation of what God is going to do. And the things that we've missed, I believe that we need to make sure that they are always precious to us. The face-to-face experience of each other and the corporate experience of the presence of God. Perhaps you've been crazy busy in this season, or perhaps you've been really bored. Perhaps you've been really distracted. I want to invite you, as we come out of this season, to make sure that we don't speed up so fast that we miss what God has for us. A particular quote I love is this: if you slow down enough to see, you will see that which changes you. And I believe as we come out that we have an invitation to be in the presence of God, to carry the presence of God with us into every situation and to slow down. I am looking forward to sitting around a meal table and having a 3 or 4 hour long meal with some good friends and to be with them. My wife and I have a particular couple of people in another country where we can't wait to be with those two couples and have a long, slow meal, preferably outside with a little bit of sunshine, and to be with them and not to be in such a rush. I want to be present for Him. I want to be present for people. Who or what is it that you need to be present for? My challenge to you, let's not be in such a rush that we miss a moment. Let's be present for each other. Acts 2:44 says, now all who believed were together. Let's not take for granted being together. Being together with each other and being together for Him. Let's not take this for granted. Let's not think, oh, we found a new routine on Sundays. Let's not do that. Let's make sure that we keep the value of being present together with Him and with each other. We've missed it, haven't we? Let's make sure that we don't take it for granted. And let's be present for this moment in history. There's a verse, I didn't put it in the notes, but Proverbs 10 verse 5 in the Passion Translation says this: know the importance of the season you are in, and you will be a wise son. And of course, the well-known verse, 1 Chronicles 12:32, the sons of Issachar had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do. I want to challenge you to understand this moment and be present for this moment. This moment in history. And let's be present for ourselves. 3 John verse 2 says, Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. The wellness course we've had was helpful for so many in so many ways. But here's my challenge to you. Don't make it a course that you have to resit. Make it a way of life. Be present for you. Be present for your needs. Take care of yourself. Take care of your soul. Make sure that your soul is prospering. And in the notes, I listed some challenges for you. What one thing will you choose to do to be present for others? What one thing will you choose to do to be present for the opportunities of this moment? And make no mistake, I honestly believe we are stepping into a new epic season in all of our lives. I don't think we'll understand it till we're out of this season, but when we are out, we are going to see shifts. Generation who have been marked by this pandemic, who are positioned for great breakthrough. I do believe that there is an awakening coming. We've been woken up to the fragile nature of mankind, and I believe we are being woken up to the power that is Jesus. Let's be present for this moment. We are privileged to be alive for it. And what will you choose to do to be present, to take care of you? I believe that there are things that we have learned in this season. We've learned to slow down for. Those that have learnt to make sourdough bread know that it's 24 hours worth of bread making. It's not an instant packet in a bread machine. That, I believe, though, is a prophetic picture of how we should live. Let's not go back to the bread off the shelf. Let's go back, as it were, to slowing down and enjoying life and enjoying the moment and being present for this moment in history. Being present is a gift. His presence is a gift. Psalm 46 says, He is a very present help in time of trouble. What a gift. The gift of the presence of God in time of trouble. And even Jesus, his name means present, really. Emmanuel, God with us. And the promise that where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I am there in the midst. The presence is a gift. And being present for each other is a gift. I think we've learnt this more in this season, perhaps in all of our lives. What a gift it is to be present, to be with each other and to be with Him. Let's not take it for granted. Let's give thanks for His presence. God promised to Moses, and I believe He promises to us. He promises something that is, we can take this to the bank. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. And that is not the rest of doing nothing. That is the rest of stepping into prophetic destiny. I know that. Because in Hebrews it says that there's a greater rest yet to come for Moses and for Joshua. Joshua had peace on every side, but there was a greater rest. There's a greater rest for you, a greater rest for me. It's the promise of God. He's going with us. That's His promise. He's going with us into this next season. His presence is going with us. Let's be present for His presence. Let's be present for each other. Let's be present for this moment. Let's be present for ourselves. What promise, dream, or prophecy which you are pursuing with His presence going with you? Put it in the chat. What are you pursuing? What dream or promise or prophecy are you pursuing? Because here's the promise. He's going with you. He's going with us. He's going with Blackwater Valley. He's going with us. He's going to provide His power, His provision, and His principles to take us where He's calling to.